There's a quiet moment that tends to arrive later in life. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a date on the calendar. It often shows up in ordinary places: early mornings, empty kitchens, long drives, quiet evenings when the house finally settles. It's the moment when the noise fades, just enough for something deeper to be heard. For most of life, everything moves fast. Responsibilities stack. Days blur together. You do what needs to be done, often without stopping to ask how it's shaping you. You raise children. You build careers. You carry families through good years and hard ones. You make decisions quickly because there isn't time to sit with them. And for a long while, that pace works. But eventually, the pace changes. The body slows first, then the schedule, then the tolerance for unnecessary stress. And in that slowing, a different kind of clarity begins to form. Things that once felt urgent lose their grip. Things that were tolerated start to feel heavier. And questions that were once postponed begin to surface. Quietly, persistently. Not dramatic questions, simple ones. Who can I trust now? What actually matters to my health? Why do certain memories still carry weight? Why does peace feel more valuable than being right? This stage of life doesn't arrive as decline. It arrives as awareness. The later years don't strip wisdom away. They reveal it. They sharpen intuition. They bring discernment. They make certain truths harder to ignore. Not because anyone warns us, but because life itself begins to insist. These truths aren't meant to alarm. They aren't meant to restrict. They're the kinds of understandings people quietly arrive at after decades of living, giving, losing, rebuilding, and learning. Sometimes the hard way. They protect peace. They preserve energy. They guard dignity, health, and independence. What follows aren't rules. They aren't lessons delivered from above. They're 7 realizations many people come to as the years pass. Truths that tend to surface when life finally slows enough to let them through. Truth 1. Trust changes after 60. Earlier in life, trust felt abundant. If it was misplaced, there was usually time to recover, time to rebuild, start over, learn the lesson, and move on. Later in life, trust carries more weight. Not because the heart becomes weaker, but because the cost of betrayal becomes higher. A wrong person doesn't just affect emotions anymore. They can disturb peace, drain energy, unsettle finances, and quietly erode confidence. People don't always change, but motivations do. Sometimes attention arrives late. Sometimes kindness comes with expectations attached. Over time, many people learn this. Calm is a better measure of trust than charm. The body often notices before the mind does. A tight chest, a restless feeling, a subtle sense of unease that doesn't yet have words. Those signals matter. Not everyone deserves full access, no matter how familiar they are. Trust doesn't disappear with age, it becomes more selective. And that selectivity isn't bitterness, it's wisdom. Truth 2. The body speaks louder now. A younger body absorbs neglect quietly. Missed sleep, ignored aches, poor posture. It compensates without complaint. Later in life, the margin narrows. Small things no longer stay small. A joint that stiffens. Breath that shortens. Fatigue that lingers longer than it used to. These aren't failures, they're messages. After decades of carrying a life, the body begins to ask for attention instead of endurance. Not to limit living, but to preserve it. Health at this stage isn't about pushing harder, it's about listening sooner. Strength, balance, nutrition, rest. None of these are dramatic choices. They're quiet ones, made daily. And often, they determine not how long life lasts, but how comfortably it's lived. Truth 3. Old emotional wounds don't stay buried. Time doesn't erase everything. Some experiences simply wait. When life slows, memories rise. Old disappointments, unspoken grief, moments that were survived but never resolved. Earlier years are full, crowded with responsibility, distraction, and forward motion. Later years create space, and in that space, the mind begins to speak. Holding on to anger eventually becomes heavier than letting it go. Not because forgiveness is noble, but because resentment demands energy the heart no longer wants to spend. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means loosening the grip. Many people discover that emotional peace becomes one of the strongest forms of medicine available. Sleep improves. The breath deepens. The days feel lighter. Some closures happen internally, and often that's enough. Truth 4. Giving without limits becomes costly. A lifetime of giving builds families, careers, and communities. But later in life, giving needs intention. Without boundaries, generosity turns into depletion. Energy fades faster. Resentment creeps in quietly. Saying no doesn't mean love is gone. It means balance has arrived. Not every request requires a yes. Not everyone needs the same level of access. Keeping energy for oneself isn't selfish. It's maintenance. Those who learn to give with awareness tend to remain present longer, emotionally, physically, and mentally. Truth 5. Loneliness is more dangerous than being alone. Loneliness isn't about how many people are nearby. It's about whether life still feels connected. Without purpose or engagement, isolation grows sharper, and vulnerability increases. Loneliness can blur judgment. It can invite the wrong influences. It can make poor decisions feel comforting in the moment. Connection doesn't require crowds. It requires meaning, routine, nature, conversation, curiosity, contribution. A life that feels purposeful, no matter how simple, offers protection that companionship alone cannot. Truth 6. Financial caution becomes essential. With age, independence, and dignity often rest on financial stability. And unfortunately, that stability can attract attention. Many losses happen not from ignorance, but from kindness, from hesitation to say no, from trust given too quickly. Careful decisions protect more than money. They protect freedom, taking time, asking questions, avoiding pressure. These habits aren't signs of fear. They're signs of self-respect. Truth 7. Peace becomes the priority. Eventually, peace outweighs explanation. Silence outweighs argument. Distance outweighs drama. Not every battle deserves engagement. Not every disagreement requires resolution. A peaceful environment supports everything else. Homes become sanctuaries. Days become simpler. Life feels lighter when unnecessary weight is set down. Peace isn't withdrawal, it's refinement. Awareness doesn't weaken a person, it steadies them. These truths don't arrive to limit life, but to protect what remains of it. And for many, they open the door to years as lived with greater calm, dignity, and intention. The journey doesn't end here. It simply becomes quieter, and often more meaningful.